Good morning everybody. What we're going to do today is just coming up to 9 o'clock, and no matter how much I'd like to loiter with intent here for a few more hours, I really do need to try and get back. And we are, if you've been watching my other episodes, if you haven't, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification, then you'll know that we're a little bit further from the car. Not much, but it's probably an hour and a half to the car rather than 45 minutes. And realistically, the sooner that we can get back today, 10 o'clock, I'd like to be leaving here by 10, and given that we're packing up, I have put my tea stuff away, so I'm not planning on making any more tea, although I wouldn't rule it out, but I do kind of just want to get going now. So basically, if you've got a frameless pack, fold your mat, quarter that halfway that way so that it's half the width, and then fold it and then quarter it or third it or however much it, so that it's just above, so here it's about here, just above the shoulder straps, because your sleep mat, obviously get all the air out of it, because your sleep mat is now, you know, effectively your back system. Now obviously we don't have anything like as much stuff going back as we had coming out, because basically this was my food bag, so that's all of my other bits, just the usual stuff, and that's filled that bag up. The cooker is in there, so normally I'd have that full of food plus that full, you know, of stuff, and I've got it in there. It's just stuff that I have, but it's pretty much everything. So ideally we want to try to pack this so that the sleeping bag and that, and to be honest, I think we're going to miss because the sleeping bag's already down there, and that's only going to bring it here. So another thing just to do is make sure that your mat hasn't shifted when you're putting stuff in, and that's pretty much okay there. So we'll put in my nighttime t-shirt, nighttime hat and socks, pillow. Note to self, I think this pillow is getting a leak now because it's going down. Also note to self, if you get the Cuban fibre shelters, one thing I forgot is all of the seams, and I don't quite know why Ron does this, all of the seams, it's all not seam sealed, but, you know, stuck because it's Cuban fibre. But the very apex at the very, very top, where Ron sews that loop on the top, the idea of that loop is if you're in a wood or a forest, you can hang it from a tree, and then you don't need you don't need the center pole. That's the idea of the loop, except a whole load of people insist on using it completely and utterly unnecessarily, you know, for pegging the shelter out, which is, I don't know, it does my head in. It's just so not necessary. Anyway, but of course by stitching it, that's the only stitches in the shelter, and whilst you don't get much water ingress, you do get like a drip now and again. So note to self, just to put some sealant on that stitching at the top. So if you do get a Cuban fibre shelter, just be prepared, you know, to put a little bit of sealant on that top up there. I'll put Bella's bed in there, which she didn't use. I will leave the waterproofs out just in case. The seat is too big to go inside, so that has to go outside. My shoes will go on my feet. My phones will go in my pocket, so they can go in there. I've got a few snack bars left. I've eaten most of the food. Another thing to do is just to check around the bottom of the pack and just make sure that you've kind of filled up most of the little nooks and crannies down there. Give it a little feel. If you've got bungee cord, like I love my bungee, then just make sure that that's not caught up around anything, and that all seems, hang on, it's a bit there caught as well. So yeah, so just check all your bungee and make sure that it's in the right place, so that when you're later on it's not so awkward. Okay, so we're nearly done without being nearly done. Oh, then I've got rubbish to go in. Snack bars goes in that packet there. I'll put my Paul Messner, my big mouth Paul Messner cup. Oh, I'm sure Paul's got a sense of humour. you got to have a sense of humour here. So we'll put my Paul Messner cup. That can actually go in there too. I basically only brought that cup because when I was packing at the very end, I hadn't put the cup in, and I didn't have any room to put a regular cup in, so I needed that collapsible cup. And I really don't like it because the lips on it are too big for my dainty mouth. It's just not comfortable to drink from. So I was just joking in another episode the other day that because Paul Messner likes it, he must have a big mouth. He must have a big mouth. Oh, bless him. Anyway, enough of the fooling. So we put that in there like that. Obviously that's all the stuff that's in the waterproof doodahs. This is quite heavy, this bag now, but it's basically, I've put all my electronics are in there and just all that stuff really. So batteries and just generally everything else really, and then that fits in there nicely, and we have kind of taken it to just over there, and obviously we've got the rubbish to go in and a couple of other bits, so we will get it over that. Just because it's a frameless pack, just double check and make sure that everything is comfy there. I actually think that the mat has slipped a bit when we put that in, so it has. So just carefully straighten it out. There, that's better. Now it's nice and that's good. So that's that in there. Then have a look around and think what goes inside the pack. So that's my hat, which we'll wear. So that's hat, that's waterproof, so that all goes outside or wears. That lead will attach outside, pegs go outside. So in the front, pocket, we've got a stuff sack for the tent. And then we've got a little bag, Cuban fibre bag, that's literally starting to fall apart. I think there's one other, somehow I've got a spare, I didn't mean to bring it, compass. We've got an extra compass in there. Right. And then rubbish. That just goes on top there. And this is basically how you pack, you know, a frameless pack. And then obviously that fuel goes up there. Spoons, they kind of just go down the side a bit there. My map, you can see my map, that can go on there, and that's pretty much everything to go inside, because I will probably just keep the thing ticking over. That, although I could just put it away given we're going straight back to the car. Obviously that's the camera that we didn't use that this time, never mind. And then I need the long lead for Bella, dispose of the tea bags, put the water away, and then obviously just the other thing that we need to do is remember that there's a stuff sack up there, and that's the one that the ground sheet will go into. And then we'll just disconnect, the ground sheet. But that is pretty much, I might actually put the ground sheet, you know, inside. So I won't do it up fully, but it is worth just clipping it up so that when you're, you know, moving it around, it doesn't all fall out, because that's rather, you know, that's rather annoying when that happens. All right, and then the GPS will attach to the outside. All right, well, we will catch up in a minute. And then a wee little tip for you. Save having to bend over into the corners, you can unhook the ground sheet simply by, like that. You know, you can do it from the outside, so you're not having to crawl around inside. So that's a little tip for you. And I found the best way to safely collapse your shelter is just to loosen a few pegs obviously it's not windy, so, and then drop the shelter as quickly as you can. It's just safer, so it's not, you know, flapping around in the wind. Obviously there's no wind, so we don't have to worry about it. And then remember, if you get your stuff sack, use that to kneel on, but it also acts as a ruler. And then try to roll it, and you kind of pull it in as you go, and then that hopefully, good girl, fits in your stuff sack. As I've said before, I really do hate this part, because it's like you've got everything done, but you look around and you've got just a pile of, it's like you look around and you've still got such a mess, and yet you have virtually packed everything, but all you see is just an unimaginable mess. But it's really not that bad, because we just have to put the pegs away. That's the last of the pegs. And the same with the ground sheet. I tend to just stand up for the ground sheet. Just roll it up. If it's a Cuban fibre, just roll Cuban fibre. That I will probably put in the top. It's supposed to be sunny intervals, and would you ever believe it, there's a tiny shower. And today was supposed to be sunny intervals. Alright, so that has to go. That can go inside the pack. We haven't got very much water in there, so hopefully it's literally like 3 drops. We'll just right, so that goes on me, that lead goes on Bella, that goes on the outside of the pack. That goes on the outside of the pack. I probably will put this away, because realistically we're not going to get much more power into that, so I will just put that away. I think it's just going to be easier. I think it's just going to be easier just to put that inside, and those water things. So that was the ground sheet, so that can go there. The other power pack was in that pouch I showed you, you know, in that bag with all the stuff. So the other power bank was in there with the leads and just everything, really. That can go in there. This, that goes down there. Normally water bottles I would put in the outside, but because I've got plenty of room, we may as well just put them in there. That little bit of foil that I left out, we'll put that in there. Bella's water thing. The pegs I put outside, the tent I put outside, so everything else now goes outside. So that's fine. I could almost put the camera inside, but I think I'll carry that, because I'm kind of curious, just want to see how it feels carrying it a bit like in that pouch. And to be fair, not too bad really. That's going to fall over. Right, so the tent goes in there. Given that we've taken I'll put it, I don't want to break anything, and I don't need to stuff it in. Pegs can go in there. Someone did ask, do I prefer using, you know, walking pole connectors and walking poles, or, you know, an actual pole? I think I've kind of got to the point where I prefer a, you know, a dedicated pole. You know, if grams were really critical, you know, maybe at that point, maybe I would prefer a dedicated, you know, then I might prefer a walking pole connector. But I do find a dedicated pole, they're really light. They're like, you know, they're like a couple of 100 grams or something like that. They really don't weigh, you know, they really don't weigh very much. And I really don't think there's a huge amount, you know. I just find them more convenient now. I've done the walking pole connecting thing, and yes, it works fine. But like I said, maybe if I was doing a longer walk and I really needed to and I really needed to save, you know, 150 grams, yes, I probably would still do that. But you know, if I was doing the Cape Wrath Trail, I'm not ever likely to do, and I have no wish or desire to do a long distance trail. I haven't got the fitness, I haven't got the time, I haven't got the energy, or I just have no desire to do, you know, anything like that, quite honestly. I'm quite happy just, you know, coming out for several days at a time. Yeah, that suits me. Right, that's the water bottle in. Right, so that lead, I'm going to put this lead on the outside, not because I'm going to need it, because I've got the long line, and that will be more than sufficient. But if I put it inside the pack, when I get back to the car, or I get back home, I will have forgotten that it's in the pack, and then I'll get home and I won't have it in the car handy, and I don't want to forget it, basically. And then just tighten up this thing that comes across the top, because then that just helps the back support doodads. I don't know what to do with this rain, because now it's actually drizzling a bit. I think I'm going to take a chance, and if it gets too much, put it on. But it's not supposed to rain, so that's everything. The only thing left is to put the camera into the little thing there, strap that on there, which I can do. I can do that now, because basically that camera there, that DJI action thing, goes in this pouch here. That goes on Bella. I carry that. So actually, given that strange, I thought I had attached that. So yeah, we can basically strap up. And because the GPS is on a tether, if it falls off when you're strapping up, it doesn't matter. Oh. I'll have a look at the time in a minute. I wonder what the time is. Tighten that up there. I've got more on this side, because if the weather was good and I had the camera out, then I'd have the camera attached here. So that's why I've got sort of, well, there isn't more there, there's just a water bottle, isn't there? Oh, and that. So it's about the same, really. Anyway, Bella's come down. We are ready to go. It's 25 to 10. That's not bad for us. And just move that up, but it does slip down a bit, so it's fine. Yeah, that's it. We're ready to go. Anyway, maybe we'll talk again, you know, a little bit later on. If not, there's not really much else to say unless something else happens, and I can't imagine there will be. Hopefully that drizzle that was in the air is, well, it's still there a bit, but hopefully it doesn't get any more. We'll see you in the next video. Probably back down here next time. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you again soon.